Hello everyone, I am Bradley Sward, Associate Professor of Computer and Information Science at the College of DuPage in Glen Ellyn, Illinois. And this video today is going to look at Advent of Code 2020 Day 16 festivities. And as always, excuse me, I'm going to be working in the Python programming language. Boy, for me anyway, this was a challenge and the time has come to push the button. No, that's not it. The time has come to look at Day 16 festivities. So here is my data set. Holy cow, is this a lot? Is there a lot to go through here? So I have all of these different parts of, different fields that would go on a ticket for, whatever the guy's doing. I forget if he's on a bus or whatever he's doing, some kind of train, whatever it is. There's a lot of data. And there's your ticket and all the other tickets around you. So and you can't speak the language. I mean, there's a whole story behind this. And you're trying to figure out which, since you can't speak the language and you don't understand what's going on, you're trying to figure out what data goes with what you see here, because you know about there's departure location station. You just don't know what it actually means in the other language. So you're trying to decipher and work your way back using a whole slew of stuff here. So that's my data set. And again, if you need to go through this and read up on this, I highly recommend giving this a few passes before you even think about pushing forward on this one. And so my code is here. Again, your mileage may vary with the data sets and everything else, but I'm hoping, and if this doesn't work out, there's nothing I can do about this. There's no way I can come back and help with anybody with this one today. I got too many things going on with finals week and everything. So I apologize if this doesn't work for you. But what you're supposed to do for part one, what is the question for part one here? So basically go through the data and figure out which of these numbers doesn't fit in any of these ranges. And add up the numbers that don't fit the ranges, and then what do you get out of the deal? That's basically what part one is asking. And so to be able to do that, here is my understanding of what's going on. I read the file in, as I always do, line for line, so I have my data. And so for whatever reason, I called it collection here. And this code will go through all of the data and basically goes up to this first new line character. And so it's basically bringing in all of this data here. And what it's doing is, okay, the name is whatever is on the left-hand side of the semicolon, or the colon. That's the name of this departure location station, whatever you name it. And on the right-hand side, there are two ranges. And so I'm splitting that one by the OR, and that's a range, 27-672. And then I'm breaking that up by the dash to the left and the right. And then I say, I didn't know a faster way to do this, or faster in terms of getting a solution rather than faster in terms of computing power, but all I did was I just have one giant set of data. Where is it here? My set. And all I'm doing is adding all the numbers in the range to that set, 27, 28, 29, 30, ... 671, 672, and then I'm going over and adding 680, 681, all the way up to 954. And it's a set, so you'll lose all the duplicates along the way, and when you go through every bit of this data, what you end up with is a collection that has every possible value that is valid from all of these different ranges. And so I think it's a lot easier than trying to figure out and just breaking into subsets and all sorts of there's crazy ways you could do this. But I think since the numbers aren't too large, I think this solution works for me. So now I have at least this stuff, and I don't need to touch until part two, but just so you know that's now there for us. I have it all set up so I have, for every element in the list, it's a list of lists if you want to think about it, right? The first part of a specific element is the name, and then the second part is the set that contains all of these things. That is a work and a half. Okay, so now what I do here for part one, now that I have these are all separated, but now I bring them all together here in this part. So I'm just saying, okay, the complete set. Okay, so maybe whatever, you get the point here. The complete set is basically ORing all of these together. I guess you can use this operation. I had to look it up. And I say, okay, for every line, get me the set and add it to the set that's already here. So boom, boom, boom. So this gets me each individual range. This gets me the range of everything all together. And now I can just go through all the nearby tickets and just go, hey, are you in this giant collection? Nope. Add it to the list. And if you are, don't do anything about it. And so that's what part 1 does. Holy cow, it's already 5 minutes into the video, and part 1, this is just part 1. And what you end up with on my end is the number 20,975. Whatever, however many numbers are in here, it looks like it's 1 per for some of them, but not for all of them, that the values that aren't in the range sum up to 20,975. And I know that's true because there's the answer. And so I know, at least for my data set, this code works. So now part 2. Oh my goodness. Okay, so those of you who watch my videos, I learned enumerate the other day, and again, I was going to look up the person's name. Forgive me, but thank you for teaching me enumerate as a way to take a list or a set and be able to figure out and add an index. That was a great learning tool. There's got to be easier ways to do this. Please help me out. Make us all better programmers. Put a comment down below if you know how to do this a better way than I do. But my thought is, sometimes you want to write code to automate a process because you're going to be doing things over and over and over again. Something like this, if you're reading the problem set, is a one-off. I just want an answer. I don't need the slickest, coolest program to make this work. I just want to know what the darn answer is. So for some of this stuff, you see, I got an answer, but it, and you're going to see at the end here, I finish it off by hand because I just need an answer. I don't care. So I know how I could figure out a way to automate it, but there's no reason to. It took me just a couple minutes to do it by hand. It would have taken me a whole lot longer to do it, computerize it and make it more robust, but there's no reason to. Okay, so for part 2, basically here, there's not a lot going on with it. You can read it out here, and you go, oh my goodness, there's not a lot but there's a lot of code or a lot of stuff you've got to do here. Because now you have all the values in the text file here. You have all the first elements, they all apply to either the zone or the wagon or the type or so forth and so on. And the second elements apply to something else. And the third and the fourth, they all apply. So all of them, and they're all, and I have to make sure I eliminate all the tickets that are invalid, and I'm going to show you how to do that too. So that the values that are out of range, those tickets don't count. Only valid tickets should count. And so of all the valid tickets, well, which column is which? Is column 0 train? Is column 0 row? And so forth and so on. And luckily, they set the problem set up so we can, for one part of this, you can simply reduce down and figure out the rest of the problem. Okay, so here is my code. Let me see if I can get this down for the rest of part 2. Bring this down and make this a little bit. Yep, there we go. We can get it all on. Can we get it all on one page? Almost. All right, there we go. There's all of the code that I wrote to get me to the final solution all on one page there. So, okay, so now what I need to do is basically, I just simplified this and I say, okay, get me every line after the line that has nearby tickets in it and store that in a list, basically a list of these data types so I can access this later on. So this is like go into data and then go to get me the nearby tickets, get me that element +1 because I want to go there, and then take me to the end. That's what this is doing. And then now I want to say which ones are valid. So go through every ticket inside of all of these, and if one of these elements doesn't fit any of the ranges, it's kind of coming back to what we did earlier. So I said that complete set that I did earlier, and I say if one of these elements aren't in there, then, oops, I guess I could get rid of this sum plus equals element. It was just a matter of it worked at the time. I don't need a sum anymore. This will probably bite me in the ass later by deleting stuff that actually works, but that's life. And so that ticket is not part of the valid list, but if I go through and every number inside of here is valid in some way, then I put this into the valid ticket list. And so at the end of this day, this thing is like 260 or something, and it works its way down to about 170. I forget the numbers, but it definitely kicks off quite a few of the tickets. Okay, so now I have just the valid tickets, and now I need to basically, there's got to be a way to do this much simpler using slicing or something like that I just don't know how to do at the current moment. And so what I do now is I'm setting up ticket values. I'm setting up sets, a list of sets. And essentially what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, the first element in ticket values is going to be a set that contains all the first elements. The next one is going to be a set that contains all the second elements and all the third elements and so forth and so on. And so I'm just going ahead and setting up, so the first element's going to have 904, 64, 550, 458, and it's a set. So again, it's going to eliminate all the duplicate values because there's no need. If it works once, it's going to work twice. It's going to work 6 times. It's going to work 100 times. So this code essentially works that out. So ticket values is a list of sets, and all the sets are respective values. Okay, so then the next part. Now I need to cross-reference this. And then, so now I have to say, okay, for every set in this collection, for the first column, the second column, the third column, so forth and so on, which of these specific ranges and which one of these could it be? Like you're not going to get an exact, you would love for it to work down and say each one resolves down to one specific attribute, but that's not true. You're going to get multiples for multiple of these, and I thought the final part was going to be even trickier than it was, because I really thought the final step was going to have to be like, oh my, all the combinations and go crazy on it, but it actually works down nicely. I'll show, at least for my data set, it works down nicely. So okay, so basically this code here goes through and figures out for every column, is every data set in the column in this row, in this row, in this row, in this row, and it collates all of that, and then eventually prints out everything. So let me just show you, like when I run my code, and you can see there I'm not allowed to swear on YouTube, right? So there we go. So what this shows me here at the end, let me bring this down so you can, there's the code that matters here. This code here generates, after all of this stuff here, it says for departure location, columns, and it's a zero-based thing, columns 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, so forth and so on, those columns could be the one. And so I've done that for every one of these. Every single, let me move this over now a little bit so the data is a little more neat. And so now I know that at least these are the only possible ways that these things could go. And you're like, oh my God, we're 12 minutes in. You're like, we're almost done, I promise you. I did not write code. You could see the solution to part 2 is use Excel or do this by hand. And again, this is lucky. Here, let me pull up my Excel here. And let me just pull this over here, and let me just explain how I finished this thing off by hand. And so what's nice about this, what it ended up being very nice about this, after all this, I printed out the length. What is the length of the number of possible things this thing could be? And it just turns out that there's a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7 and an 8 and a 9 and a 10 and an 11 and a 12 and a 13. And it just turns out that all you need to do is start with the first one here, the one that has 12. And you can see there's my 12. And then the second one is a subset with 12 in it. So the only thing that can be is the 8. And then the third one, 14. The fourth one, the 9, and again, your mileage may completely vary. I am not taking any responsibility for anybody else. I'm just showing you a general solution to this. And so you work your way through, and it just turns out that the departure time is the 15th column, the station is the 5th, the date is the 10th, track is 19, platform is 17, location is 2. And I don't have to do any of the extra work. It would all fill in, wouldn't it? At least I would think it would. I didn't go ahead because I only need to multiply those 6 numbers together, excuse me again, to find the solution. So this is my data set for my ticket, and I just went ahead and I just said the 0th element is 73, and I just basically copy pasted everything in. And all I did was I took you can look at this here. I have 2. You can see I multiply digit 5 times digit 15 times digit 10 times 19 times 17 times 2, and my solution there, 9, 1, blah, blah, blah. That is the solution that I get. Oops, bring this over just a little bit more. And that is my solution to part 2, day 16. that took a work. I had to work, like I'm just getting exhausted with finals, so I couldn't do this last night, but I did it in parts today while I'm grading. And it was it was a nice piecemeal part. You could just work it out and you go, I need to get this, I need to get that, and I would spend a couple minutes, and I was more, maybe 10 or so minutes more than that, to get this thing going for each individual part. And I was very relieved after all of that the first time I put my answer in, it gave me a success. So as always, please, if there's got to be better ways to do this, help us out, help me out, help everybody out, please. What did you do differently that does this much more smoothly than I did? Please comment below here on YouTube. And as always, thanks for sticking with this video with me. And I hope I have a video for tomorrow. We'll see if this is getting this challenging. I only have a couple more days with finals and all that. We'll see how far I can go. Things are starting to ramp up in difficulty. So as always, thanks everybody. Have a great day. See you next time.